Welcome to Business Raw with Julia Scoville. I've got amazing guest today, David Farmer from Lime Finances. When I met Dave and he shared his story, why he does what he do, it just really struck me that he's non-standard, definitely not ordinary type of person, and definitely finance specialist. So David helps business owners to enable their growth by providing the relevant finance, whether it's going to be development, whether it's going to be finance for expanding your team, purchasing, whatever. I'll let David introduce himself in a minute, but today the podcast is all about business raw that David will share with us. So David, can you give us a bit of background, who you are, how you can help, what do you do?
Yeah, so I guess as a way of background, I am a banker by profession. I repented those sins about 15 years ago and went out on my own to try and do the things that clients wanted that couldn't be achieved in the corporate world. So to really give them the freedom to speak to a human being and get all the things that clients want that they couldn't get from the corporate banking world, I guess. And for me, I don't know, I guess I struggle to fit into a corporate brand because you're always sort of pushing against those barriers and those limitations. So, yeah, someone that wanted to repent his sins of being a banker and go and be yourself for a while.
Yeah, play by your own rules, not by someone else's. And I remember when we met and you said, I'm not traditional banker. And the way I describe you, when I position you with, other people that I come across, the way I say this, and I wonder if this is resonating, like most of the lending applications get done by computer those days, and only underwriters pick up like unusual cases. But even underwriters got those restrictions, right? So computer says no. So the way I'm positioning you, David comes when computer says no. He brings the common sense, the human touch to the application, make sure that the lender truly understands what actually the business owner would like to achieve and communicate in a human language rather than like computer language. So you can basically secure finance and get win-win situation for all.
Yeah, I think that's probably a nicer summary than I could put it, if I'm honest. Because we have a key part for people looking at borrowing is, yes, the computer makes a decision, but it makes it on the basis of the information that you give it. And once you've given that information, you can never take it back. And quite often we talk about what a client will say to a lender and what the lender hears. And those things are very different. So when the client says, and you know this, my profits are higher than the accounts show. And we all sort of know there's some truth in that, but a lender just hears, no, they aren't. So, yeah, a lot of time although a computer makes a decision, it make it on the information that you give it. And that's part of where we come in as well, is making sure that when the client gives that information, it's the right information that the client is providing. Yeah.
So that's the key, the right information. So if anyone applying for finance right now for lending, would that be your advice to make sure that the information you provide is the right one? How do you ensure that you even provide the right one? Like you said, if the profits are, but actually it doesn't reflect on your finances yet, what do you do?
Exactly. But I mean, part of it is understanding what the question is actually asking. Because if we've all been through a lending application and it's asked you, how much your mortgage payment is, how much your council tax is. The lender's not doing that because they're curious of how much your mortgage is or how much your council tax is. They're using those figures to double check against what you said your house was worth. So the council tax will match with a house price. The mortgage will match with what you've borrowed. So actually they're asking those questions for a different reason. It's not because they're interested. It's because they're double checking what you've already told them. So sometimes it's simply about understanding what the question's actually asking.
I love that. So
it's not always as simple as, have you got a credit card? And you put, no. Well, if you're in a really good job and you've got a house or other properties, you probably will have a credit card. You might have any borrowing on it, but you probably will have a card. So sometimes things don't stack up. So lenders ask questions for different reasons. If you can understand those, it's easier to give the right answer. Yeah.
the lenders are more sophisticated, what I'm getting from you, than actually we think, like us as a borrowers, we think it's just purely affordability statement, but actually there is much more behind the scenes.
There is, yeah. There's always a reason why a lender asks something. And it's not because they're interested or curious. It's because they want to know something. And, it's understanding what it is they're driving at. Some people don't understand what the question is. It's not as simple as it first looks. You're quite correct. Yeah.
So, like you left your corporate world, you started your own business. How long you've been running your own business now?
We started properly in 2012. So this is 14 years this year?
Amazing. This is quite a good mature number for business. And I'm sure it was just a straight, smooth journey. It was always upwards. Never had anything happening to you.
I always talk back and go, when I was in my late teens, I had quite quite long hair. That disappeared. Half of it went when my daughter was born. The other half went when I started my own business. We all know it's regardless of what anyone tells you what a network can do, it's not plain sailing, is it? It's up and down.
Absolutely, like anyone's journey, right? In business. Otherwise, for sure that if someone says, yes, we're just smashing it year on year, they are not revealing the truth. And so you started your own business, and like you said, it has been roller coaster. As a business owner, usually we have quite few defining moments in our business which changes the direction of you as a business owner, and perhaps even changing your mindset or changing the direction of your business altogether. Have you ever had that moment in your business?
I think we've had quite a lot of what we'd call soft moments. Those things that make you think a couple of times. And then now and again, you get that big one that makes you go, I've got that wrong. And that's the sort of seminal moment. You go, right, now's the time to go back and look at this. And of course, when you're out on your own, that's quite a lonely thing to go through.
So was it something in specific that you're referring to, like that that painful moment when you got it wrong? And did you get it wrong? What happened?
I think there's always a degree of you've got it wrong, whether that's the big thing you've got wrong or the little things that you've got wrong, or is an error of judgment, whatever it might be. I guess to explain that moment, the way our business works is we get our business from introducers. So because what we do is quite nichey, we get business introduced from other mortgage brokers, accountants, financial advisors, etc. So we work through them to get to our end client. And we had one case that was introduced to us and it went wrong. Not because of what we did, but because actually the person we'd worked through hadn't quite been as honest as we were.
So you mean referring to the introducer or to the person that they referred to, the introducer? So what happened then?
We were asked to go and finance a restaurant that was struggling. They needed money quite urgently. And this was introduced to us via another mortgage broker. We put the finance together. It met all the criteria that the client had asked for. It looked fine. And then we got a threatening solicitor's letter through a few weeks later. And it is one of those with several pages, and you read it and you just go, oh, that was the big worry.
So what was the letter referring to? Like what?
We'd put a finance deal together based on what the client wanted, but this was based on what our introducer had told us the client wanted. And basically the client had gone to settle their finance agreement, which we never knew was an intention of theirs. And of course, there was a hefty cost to them in doing that.
Like a settlement fee.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we had a solicitor's letter come through from the client saying, we want this money back. You've done X, Y, Z. You failed in this A, B, C. And it's one of those you look at and you go, what am I going to do?
Because you are a fully independent advisor. You are FCA registered as well.
Correct.
Under umbrella. So stuff like that happening in your business is crucial. It's either like make it or break it. It's can bring your business down overnight, isn't it?
It is. So if that sort of complaint is upheld and we are negligent, then we can lose our license. We can be fined by our regulator. So we are squeaky clean on that side. So yeah, this is a potential end of business moment.
So how did you navigate that then? What happened?
Well, our first point of call was to go back to the introducer that gave us a business and say, hang on, what have you said to the client? We need your notes and we also need your help to resolve it.
Mm.
And their response was basically to wash their hands. So your problem, not ours, which was perhaps the first point I realized that people will let you down when times get hard.
So you left basically to your own devices to deal.
Yeah. And you suddenly realize, okay, some people are there when things are going well. As soon as it gets hard, they sort of just wash your hands of it. And it's a learning moment that actually it's quite tough. Some people will cross you and just leave you to it.
And I'm guessing you obviously had relationship with that introducer. You don't do business just with anyone. It's you build a personal relationship. So that must be tough to navigate.
Exactly. And we do a diligence on people we work with, but you can't diligence their character. You can look at their professional standing, whatever else, but you can't do diligence on their underlying character because you don't know until these things arrive. And it's one of those moments that you look at it, and of course you take that problem home with you. And you know as well as I do, unless you run your own business, you don't understand what running a business is like. It's great, but it is also quite lonely.
Absolutely.
And of course, you carry it on your shoulders. The corporate world, you pass it upwards or you pass it down. In the world that we're in, there's nowhere else for it to go. You've got to deal with it. And it's hard to lose sleep over things like
that. So am I guessing right, like these situations start to affect not just your business, but like your personal life?
Of course they do. Yeah.
In what way? Yeah, like you said, sleepless nights, like your partner, I guess, when you shared the situation, they probably didn't understand, like what were the response? Were they like, oh, it'll be fine? Or
I think don't really understand, don't really appreciate the gravity and how far the potential problem goes.
Mm-hmm.
You are crossing that line between professional and personal. And of course, the people that you love that you've got around you will generally tell you what you want to hear. Because they want to support you. And sometimes that's not always the most constructive.
So must have been quite, I guess, tough position to be in that moment when you're facing a big letter from solicitors, potentially, big hefty chunk of money out of your business, losing that relationship and trust with your introducer, actually not having great relationship at home with your partner. So must have been quite a lonely place for you because as I always say, as a business owner, you can't go and complain to your customers. You can't go and complain to your team members. You can't go and complain to your spouse or your partner, but you are a human being. It's left on your shoulders to deal with that. And how did you deal with that? What happened? Tell me.
At this point in time, I was in an office that I shared with another guy who ran a completely different business. And I guess luckily I had someone who was completely unconnected to me that just talked back at me normally. And he basically just said, stand up to them. Stand up to them. And I won't use his words because it's slightly more blunt, but told him to go away, but in much shorter words. But of course, from a corporate background, you'd never do that. You talk to placate and compromise. Whereas he said, no, that's not what you do. Just tell them to do one. And he suddenly realised, yeah, this is the tougher part of running a business. More cutthroat side of it.
I think certainly what I've learned through my entrepreneurship is one of the advantages of running your own business. You've got the choice people that you would like to work with. And like you said, also set the boundaries, like if you're going to lose that person identity as a client, but it's causing you so much grief, well, let it be, like personally, I came to conclusion, I only want to work with a client who understand the value that you bring to the table, who are appreciative of your service and also share the same value set as you are. Because once you're aligned, it's so much easier to do business. And also it makes you as an individual to feel more aligned. You don't feel like you're portraying yourself, because when, like what I encountered, when you take business, especially when we're starting business, we want money, right? We want cash, we want income. So we say yes to anything and everything. And
Yeah.
we compromise ourselves so much. And unfortunately, those compromises come and bite us. And we have this misalignment of values and misalignment of who we are, and we feel betrayed. And that's not a nice place to be as well, because then you do feel like being handheld in the handcuffs, right? And you have to be servant to that client, to that customer, where it's actually, like you said, you just want to say, bug off. I don't want to work with you. So this amazing, right? Sometimes we meet people in our lives, and like you said, it's a guy who just was working next door.
Yep.
You don't even have a strong relationship, but gave you such a valuable advice, right? Go and stand your ground and, don't accept it. So did you do it? Did
I
you follow
did.
that advice?
Yeah, no, I did. I would say I stood my ground, but I stood my ground with him standing behind me. And sometimes you need that. You need that. You need someone else to go, you're doing the right thing, Dave. And having that person was a lifesaver, if I'm honest. My insurance company, because obviously we're insured for things like this to happen, looked at what we'd done and basically agreed, stand your ground, tell them to go away. So yeah, I did, but because I had someone in my corner as well. And I think you always need that. You do need someone in your corner that understands you, because otherwise you are just too much on your own sometimes.
Absolutely. And it's also like you against you. I always say you are the biggest competition. Like, watch your lane, don't watch someone else's lane, because your fears, your mindset will be the blocker, will be the entity that will stop and prevent you. And like in your case, like lots of worries was in the back of your mind, the fear factor. But the fact is that someone stood behind you and said, no, this is, we're going to do it. We're going to overcome this fear. We're going to overcome the voice that, talking to you. Just was absolutely amazing. And I think this is the power of like masterminds, the power of like having business coach or someone in your
Yep.
corner that can say, no, that's fine. I'm here with you. We're doing this regardless of what. Because I always say, like, even me as a business coach, I value business coaching services. I utilize many, many mentor services, coaching services, because I always say you cannot see the blind spots, right? You can only see what you can see, but the blind spots, they're not on your periphery. And this is where you need someone else's perspective. This is when you need another person to show you, actually, hold on a second, the picture is much wider than you think. And the answers out there, and, the solutions out there, and you just need to notice them. So what an amazing story. Are you still friends or in touch with that person?
We are. We both gone sort of different directions many years ago. I am. We still cross paths on Facebook. Still see him now and again. Yeah, weirdly, he applied to go on The Apprentice a few years ago. So I wrote his business plan with him.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so he got to the reserve list, so he got so far and he got some good connections. So yeah, no, our paths have crossed a few times, and it's one of those sort of, I hate the phrase, but trusted circle.
So that moment was defining moment for you as a business owner, also for your business. I guess what learning points you have withdrawn for yourself, and then how did you apply that either to yourself or to your business?
I think I'll go back to something you said, that when we start, we take on all sorts of business because we're desperate for clients. And it's that point you realize, no, I'm going to choose who I work with. I'm going to choose who I work through, and I'm going to be pickier, because although it's nice having lots of work to do and coming through, not all work's good work. And I don't want to work with people that don't want to work with me, because we both need to, you're right. We both need to feel valued. So yeah, the big learning point for me was actually, I'm going to be more selective of who I work with. And that's always been the case now ever since.
Isn't that amazing that in the moment when things like this happens to us, we're like panicking, thinking, oh my God, why this happened to me? What does that mean? Like with the fear factor. But actually, moments like this are defining our business, make it much stronger, make our operation tighter, and basically allows us to produce better results. When I work with clients and they're panicking and saying, oh, like I had this issue, like with my team, for example, the team didn't follow the procedure. Now we're facing bigger expenditure than we anticipated, or a client now complaining, we have to compensate, and they're all panicking. I was like, fantastic, great. That means only one thing, that now you can improve your business, you can improve your processes, make it tighter, so things like this not going to happen again. Just get excited. This is like an opportunity, right? This is like, finally, someone give me feedback. I can make my operation better, because we work so hard and we think we created this ideal scenario, but actually there is always room for improvement in a business. So moments like this, as Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So,
Yeah, it's true. I think it's like when that first day you say no to a piece of work, or that first day you sack a client. You say, no, we're not going to be doing that. It's massively liberating, because you know that it's just not going to be worth it.
So tell me more. So like you came through that decision, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously business carries on, and then, client, leads coming, potential, whatever. So do you remember the first one that you decided, I think this is the moment where I need to stick to my grounds and politely decline? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So give us more details. Yeah. What happened? What was going through your mind?
When you first get that opportunity for a piece of business, you see the value of what it could be worth.
So you see the pound signs, basically.
You do. Of course you do. And then you've got to realise how much work is going to go in, and how much hassle and problem it's going to be to get to those pound signs. And is the client actually going to pay when it comes due? And we had a client where we'd always had a problem getting paid at the end. It was always a hassle. It was a chase. It was hard work. And they came back with a really nice piece of work, but we knew it was going to be problem. They were going to want it cheaper. And then we would struggle to get paid. And someone taps you on the shoulder and goes, we're not going to do this, are we? And you realise, no, we're not. And it was that client that had a building development project. They were already asking us to reduce what our costs were going to be. And you suddenly go, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. We've got the expertise. We've got the experience. We want some respect for that, because that will benefit you. But at the same time, there's a premium for it. So if you don't want to pay, that's absolutely fine, but that's not for us. And I remember our first client like that. And you're almost ready to do the business. And if someone taps you on the shoulder and goes, do we really want to do this? And you go, no. And you say no to it. You say no nicely.
Did they keep back, question your decision?
They do. And they did. We said, look, we'll do it, but this is
our standard
cost, and this is the standard, and this is the terms, and this is what we're going to deliver. And then it's up to them. So to them, us sticking to our guns is a no. We're not going to work with you. But it's just been slightly firmer in saying, no, this is what we're going to do. But they've got a choice out there. They can go somewhere else. That's fine. And I respect that. That's fine. But
not for us. I love that.
Not for us.
It's almost the analogy I'm using in this respect. It's like, let's say if you go and buy Ferrari, right? You're not going to walk in a courtyard and start negotiating down and down and down. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get cheap Ferrari, for starters. That's it, full stop. So there is no expectation. But even if you do, you're just not going to, you're just going to get come back. And most likely, they're probably not going to welcome you back on that courtyard ever again. So knowing your value and articulate that, and being firm to say, I know what I can provide. I know what I can do. I know how much it means to you and your business, how much value this will add. It's cost me money as well to get myself to this point in terms of my education, my experience, like you said, all the things that we encountered on this journey, and that does cost money. So it's either my rules or go elsewhere who might give you a discount, but what type of service you're going to get.
You're quite correct. You're correct. It's trying to remind clients that they're not paying for the hours that we put into the project now. They're paying for the 30 years that went before it.
Absolutely. And they're getting shortcut, right? And especially like in your industry and what you do, each application is individual. It's not like a big conveyor belt with standard cases. Each application is so individual, so unique. And like you said, one small little detail being missed or not positioned right can just decline the whole application. So to have that, actually, I've got a story. I heard this really good story. I think you resonate with this and the listeners as well. There was a factory and production factory and conveyor belts, whatever, and it was working all nicely. And one day the whole operation just stuck. Something wasn't working properly, and the manager called a specialist. Specialist walk around, look around, tap on things, got his little hammer, hit the nail.
Yeah.
Says, have you got? You heard that story, right? Have you got? It's a bill for 10,000, let's say, pounds, dollars, whatever. And the business owner said, well, like you literally been here 5 minutes, you hit one nail and you're expecting me to pay $10,000. This is like outrageous. And he said, no, hold on a second. I've been here 5 minutes to know exactly which nail to hit, but it's took me 30 years of experience and so much money to get to this point.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess all of us as a business owners, we're so keen to get business that very often we forget about the value that we bring to the table and the journey that we made to become a specialist and offer what we do offer to our clients. So that's a definitely great reminder for us all. If you're listening right now, just appreciate yourself, pat yourself on the back and say, I only choose to work with clients who share my values, see what I've got, bring to the table, because like we all deserve it, right? And I always link this to your life because like life at the end of the day, quite short, right? If you're not enjoying it every single day in all aspects, like your personal, your business, your clients, what's the point? What's the point of suffering? What's the point of stressing? It has to be enjoyable.
You've got to remember what you're working for.
Mm.
You think it's the money. It probably isn't. It might be what that money gives you, but it's what that money gives you that you're actually working for. And sometimes you need to remind yourself, why are you doing what you're doing?
Absolutely.
We work for a purpose.
Absolutely. And I think all of us as entrepreneurs, we've got this like internal strong drive, that purpose. Otherwise, I think we won't be able to do what we do when life gets tough and, business gets tough. It's just like so easy to give up. But I think that purpose, like I encountered when things are tough, this little internal, I don't know, motivation or whatever you want to call it, the energy, just like, no, you have to do this. Like we can't give up because this is what you're doing this for, right? So you find that strength somehow, you do your baby steps and yeah, it's always roller coaster, right? Up and down. David, I would like to find out, like you said, we don't work for money, we work for bigger purpose. You've been in business like 14 years now. What's your plans for your business? What's your vision, I guess, going forward?
I guess for me, we're on like a 10-year plan, and that plan has got to lead to me spending more time on the beach. And I'm at that age where, I've got a daughter, I'm in my 20s. You're sort of looking forward at night to a world thinking, do you know what? If grandchildren came along, it'd be nice to have a bit more time for them. I'd like to go away for a weekend and not worry about Monday morning. It's all those little things. It's weird because we're recording this today and it's my dad's anniversary today. And it's always a time where I sort of look back and think, yeah, there's a few things he said to me and they just resonate. And I remember him saying at the end of his life, it's been brilliant, son, been brilliant, but it's gone so quickly. And that has always stuck with me, that it's gone so quickly.
Oh.
And you just think, okay, do more stuff now, Dave. If you're going on holiday for a week, go for 10 days. Do you know what I mean? All those little things. So part of the plan is do more of those little things. And in 10 years' time, I'd like to have someone else doing what I do, and I'll just do some part-time stuff and keep myself busy.
Fantastic. Love that. And what a collaboration, right, of your dad's anniversary and you recording this podcast and sharing the wisdom. I've lost both parents myself, and understanding how life is precious and goes quick, certainly something on my mind. And I'm now really, I guess, reconstructed the way I'm conducting my business. In the past, I would say 80% of my time was spent business, business, business. Family and everything else had to fit into 20%, which I have suffered for, and I guess paid my price tag. And, those pain points made me to realize I need to restructure. I need to do something different, because this is just not on, it's not fair on my loved ones. It's not fair on me, on life. And now I'm consciously deciding that I'm going to enjoy my life here and now. It doesn't have to be big, expensive, long weekends, even away somewhere. Like recently, I went to Krakow for 4 days with my kids. I thought, you know what? I want them to see snow, they haven't seen big snow. They're age 13 and 8. And I remember snow. We still remember snow, right? From our days. So I thought, you know what? Let's do that. Let's just go for a couple of days and enjoy the snow. And we did. And it was amazing. They still remember today, how they slide down first time, how they add the snow, they throw the snow, they had so much fun and me with it. So I can't agree more with your dad. Life is amazing, but it goes so fast. So creating those moments.
To bring it full circle, I'm in Krakow next week.
How about that?
So it's a number of coincidences, but I look forward to some snow.
Well, if you're going to be in Krakow, I certainly recommend you a very nice restaurant with traditional Polish food that you have to go. I've been there twice now, and it just didn't fail. It's called CI in Polish. It's Morskoje Oka. I'll send you the details. But
you can send me the details. Yeah.
But it's lovely. It's really, really nice. They've got lovely meat platter. Yeah, traditional Polish, I guess, not vodka drink, like liquor. Yeah, it's lovely city. You're going to enjoy it for sure. How about that?
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, David. And wrapping up our conversation today, I always ask this question. So if there was one piece of advice or wisdom that you could have passed a younger version to yourself, what that would be?
Be yourself. People will love you or dislike you regardless. Be yourself. Let your personality come through in what you do, and your people will find you. And those people are worth keeping hold of. I think it's the same in life, and it's definitely the same in business. The people that work with you are the ones that understand you, you enjoy their time. And if you are running a business, let your personality come through. It's what makes you different, and it's what will make people work with you. And I would just tell my younger self to like yourself a little bit more. Just a bit more faith, and don't worry about everyone else. Just be you. It took me a long time to realise that, but just be you.
I love that. Just be you. Well, thank you so much. And if people resonated with you and want to connect with you and find you, what will be the best way?
You'll find us on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to find us. Look up Line Finance, website's there, that's very active. Plenty of ways to connect. But just drop us into LinkedIn, drop us a line. We'd love to connect.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem. I look forward to a restaurant in Krakow.
Yay.